Hello, everyone. My name is Hattie McNutt, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I work here at the Department of Counseling and Psychological Services, also known as CAPS. I would like to welcome you to the How to Develop Habits, Good Habits webinar. I am glad that you were able to join me today, and I'm excited. Actually, I'm honored to be spending this time with you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started on my webinar presentation. Excuse me. So how to develop good habits. This is my agenda for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my introduction. I just did of who I am, and then I'm going to do a little housekeeping. I'm going to talk a little bit and give a little bit of a definition about what good habits really is. We're going to talk just briefly about bad habits so you have an understanding of a contrast. And then we're going to go right into the purpose. And I'm going to focus a little bit on some of the things that may be of interest to you, which is study skills, time management, as well as effective communication. And then I'm going to give you my final thoughts. Okay, so first we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Before I officially start, I would like to share that please know that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on the CAPS website, likely in the next 2 weeks or so. If you have any questions during the webinar, please go ahead and submit them in the Q&A box. I will save time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. If you have any questions and or concerns related to technical difficulties or anything not related to the webinar, please feel free to post those questions in the chat or the comment box, and they will be addressed for you. If you are here for extra credit from your professor, the attendance sheet will be provided later in the webinar. So please have your phones or notepads ready so that you can either take a picture or a copy of the link. And at the end of this webinar, you will have an opportunity to take our feedback survey to be entered into an equal opportunity drawn for a $25 gift card to Amazon. Okay, so I think we're just gonna dive in and get into the information. What I've tried to provide here is to kind of keep things very simple. And to just give you some information that you can ultimately utilize. My head is gonna move back and forth simply because I am actually utilizing 2 big screens. It just helps me to be able to see better as well. So we're gonna go right into doing a poll. So I'm going to activate our first poll. And let me just pull it up. I'm kind of new at this, so so I'm going to, let's see, launch the poll. Okay, so the first question that I'm asking is, what percentage of your thoughts, behaviors, and communications are habitual? What percentage? Okay, I'm going to give everyone about a minute to answer. Okay, we're moving really fast here. Excellent. Alrighty. So again, we're just looking for percentage. What percentage of your thoughts, behaviors, and communications are habitual? I have a variety. Excellent. We're going to end in about 10 seconds. Okay, so we're going to end the poll. We're going to share the results of the poll. Alrighty, so kind of a mixture, 50% to 40% is kind of a mixture. Yeah, it's actually, I'm going to close this. I'm going to stop showing. And I'm going to go back to my presentation here. So let's go back and I'll kind of talk about what the, so before I get into it, let's just kind of talk in general. I'm going to give a definition of what good habits are. So good habits, it's a behavior that is beneficial to one's physical and mental health, often linked to a high level of discipline and self-control. It is a behavior pattern acquired by frequent repetition. So something that we do over and over and over again. An acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. Okay, so we don't really know that we're doing it all the time. So studies suggest that habits, and that's good and bad habits, account for nearly 50% of our actions that we perform each day. So the actions that we take. So half of what we do, half of what we think, and half of what we say are performed out of habit. We're really unaware that we're doing it. So that's very impactful in our relationships and in our engagements that we have when we interact with other people and even with ourselves. So that's puts an emphasis on why it is so important to be mindful of our behaviors and the importance of really trying to focus on making sure that we implement good behaviors and good habits so that it affects us in multiple areas of our lives and in our interactions, so that, and so therefore it's going to affect our surroundings as well. So that's 50%. So that's pretty, again, that's pretty significant. So what we want to look at is, very briefly, is then what are bad habits, so that we can better understand what exactly are good habits and how do I know that I have them, and when I don't, how can I change them to implement them as well. So here are just a list of bad habits. What are bad habits? Bad habits are behaviors that hold you back and do not foster growth. Bad habits are hard to break, even though you may know that they're unhealthy for you. Bad habits can jeopardize your health and mental and physical well-being. Bad habits can damage relationships. Bad habits can prevent you from accomplishing your goals. Bad habits can make life very difficult. But most importantly, it's important to understand that bad habits can be replaced with good habits. Okay, so this kind of gives us a sense of what bad habits are and how they affect us. Because sometimes, you know, again, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, in understanding that bad habits can be, or habits in general, are very subjective. So a bad habit or a good habit to me may look very differently to someone else. So we want to always keep that in mind. Here are some common bad habits that we come across and we talk about a little bit more when it comes to college students. Now, this is just a sample list. It's not a full list by any means, but these are some of the things that come up a little bit more often. So poor study habits, poor time management, which we'll talk a little bit about study habits and management later, poor and disorganized note-taking. And I say poor and disorganized, not just poor note-taking, because you can actually be a person, actually take good notes in the sense of the note, the information itself, but it's so disorganized that it's not easily understood. Poor planning, cramming, wait until the last minute to, study or get something done, but usually cramming for an exam of some sort, which is good in the short term, in the sense that it may get you where you want and give you what you want in the moment. But once so you retrieve the information, but once you release it, you don't retain it. And so that's why cramming is kind of problematic, and it's not really a good habit that you want to make a part of your normal practice. Perfectionism, which balances itself out in the sense of, when we talk about perfectionism, we want to be clear that there's nothing wrong with wanting things to be well done and to look really well. But when perfectionism starts to hinder and create stress and anxiety, then it's no longer a good thing, it's a bad thing. Distractions, in many aspects of everything. We're usually talking about distractions from when I need to accomplish something and other things are preventing me from doing that. Repetitive mistakes are often bad habits that college students make. And a lot of these things are things that we do in other areas of our lives as well. But the repetitive mistakes is when you continuously doing something wrong and more than likely know that it's not working, but you continue doing the same thing, which is kind of the saying of continuing to do the same thing, expecting a different outcome, and not making the needed changes that you really need. And then cluttered space. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Why is it important to have a space, especially your study space or where you are doing your homework and stuff like that? Why is it important to declutter that space? So these are just some of the bad habits that a lot of some college students experience. So the purpose of developing good habits. This is pretty significant because this is for our overall health and well-being. And so it's done to improve the state of happiness and the quality of life. It helps you grow into a better, best self, your better and best self. It improves your overall mental health and well-being. It promotes positive traits like motivation and self-confidence. It increases optimism, self-awareness, and self-respect. It helps increase level of achievement and increases level of success. It helps you achieve your goals. And good habits also disrupts bad habits. So it is important to note that, when we're developing good habits, there's always that conversation. Yes, there are some good habits that come easily, but because developing good habits are grounded in creating new thoughts and behaviors, it can be challenging. Okay, so it is important to understand that the development and the implementation of good habits are not always simplistic. It's a process. So we want to kind of be patient with ourselves and give ourselves grace during that process. Okay. So now we're going to take another poll. Alrighty. Let's do the second one. So this particular poll is it fairly easy to develop good habits? Do you feel that for you, is it fairly easy for you to develop good habits? And overall, is it fairly easy? Okay. Some agree to, okay. Gonna end in about 15 seconds. 19% neutral, okay. All righty. Okay, so here are the results. So 26% agree, neutral, 18%, disagree, 45. So like I said, not necessarily. Again, some good habits are are easier to implement, and a part of that comes from the fact that we do have certain habits that just have been instilled in us as at a young age. So they just become a part of us and we don't really notice them on a regular basis. It's kind of like that saying please and thank you. We did that when we were young. So as we grow and become adults, it just becomes a natural part of our existence and our behavior. We implement that. So there, again, are habits that are good habits that are going to be pretty easy. When it gets kind of difficult is when, and more challenging, is when we are doing something really that we are not aware. Going back to that, involuntary, they just happen automatically. And they're starting to affect, they're starting to hinder, they're starting to create problems and difficulties. And then we need to change those bad habits and implement good habits. Because again, habits are grounded in change of behavior. It takes us it can be more challenging to change something that has been such a part of our norm and have to reteach ourselves to do something differently. And so that's when it becomes a little bit more challenging. So we're going to talk a little bit about developing good habits. So how do you go through that process of starting to change bad habits and into good habits? Because the one thing that I want to emphasize is that anytime that you have a good habit and you realize it and you realize that change is needed, you generally want to replace it with something, because the fear is if you don't, that you may revert back to doing something, back to the old ways and back to the old habit again. So these are just some ideas. I mean, this is pretty significant. There are many ways on how to develop good habits, but I'm just going to I'm taking just some key points that I wanted to highlight, that I think are pretty important, and I think that would be helpful. First and foremost, it's self-reflection. I'm a very big proponent of self-reflection. I'm the type of person that, we in our lives continuously, we should be taking that moment where we kind of step back and kind of do a self-check, just to make sure we're okay and that we're good and that we're moving in the direction in which we desire to move in. So anytime you're developing good habits, you want to evaluate one's thoughts, attitudes, behaviors, and motivations. And then you want to also separate the person from the behavior. And I'm going to add in there making informed decisions, which is ask yourself the tough questions and be honest, but not judgmental. And what this really means is, sometimes we are our biggest obstacles and we stand in our own way of implementing positive change and doing what is best for our own selves, because we can be very critical of ourselves. And some of the bad habits that we implement on a daily basis are not, because they're so involuntary, they're so automatic, we don't sometimes know that we're doing them. So they can actually be pointed out by other people. And that makes us feel a certain kind of way as well. So self-reflection is a good time to be honest with yourself about why change is needed. So self-reflection provides us an opportunity, really, for you to kind of step back and look at yourself with blinders off and ask yourself, okay, what's going on here, so that you can gain perspective, so you can decide what change needed, because that's the power of choice. That's the power that you have over that decision-making process. Asking yourself those tough questions and then reflecting on it and then answering it and then responding, acting on it. So again, self-reflection also allows you to gain insight and grow a better understanding of self, to not only make needed changes, but to know why you're making those needed changes. And we don't want to be critical. We want to separate the behavior from the person, because sometimes we can be very critical, very judgmental of our own self, that when we see the behavior, we just naturally equate that to I'm the person is bad. And it is not the person, it is the action and the behavior. So we want to make sure that we separate them and not be critical. The other thing I want to point out is motives, because especially if someone points out that we have a bad habit, that there's something that we're doing and it's not intentional and we don't know it, or there's something that we're doing and it's such a part of us and we just don't want to change it, or we're not ready to change it, but it is harmful to ourselves really, but also harmful to other people. The motives of changing, some people will say, well, I want to change this habit because someone else told me to, or I need to do it for them. That is perfectly okay. And it's a great thing that you're taking someone else into consideration. But the fundamental foundation of that change really needs to come from self and from within. And the reason why, they can be a motivation of why to change, but changing for someone else doesn't always stay, and you're not always invested in the change. So if it's a combination of both, I'm changing because it's something I want to do, it's something that I want to do for somebody else because I care, then together that will strengthen your commitment really to the change. Start small. Not going to spend a lot of time on there. Be reasonable and attainable. Any change that you're going to make needs to be reasonable, not extreme, not excessive. You want to make sure that your expectations are fair of yourself. It's sensible, and it's really practical. It's something that, like any goal, can be reached and it's attainable. The goal in making changes in good habits is to make you feel better, to utilize, that help, improvement and everything, not to create stress and anxiety for yourself. And sometimes change is about adjustment. So taking it one step at a time, a little bit at a time. You don't want to hinder the process. You don't want to make the process worse. You want to make it where it's something that is a positive experience. So it's measurable and it's going to create a sense of success and improvement. So we don't want to stress ourselves out with creating change that's too big for us, because we also want to be careful about setting ourselves up for failure in those changes. So starting small is important. Time, training, practice, persistence, routine. A lot of things that we do when it does in good habits, creating good habit is about routine. So we want to make sure that we know that this isn't going to be a quick fix, and it's not necessarily going to happen overnight. It's a process, so it's going to take time. So again, we want to allow that time to happen. It's not going to be perfect, but we want to have patience with the process. Key optimism, to be optimistic and positive. Attitude matters, and self-investment. This is very important. It's important just in general. Good habits of being positive is just a good thing. It's a good thing to try to be as positive. It helps combat and overcome, obviously, negative feelings, but it helps you to address and manage stressful situations in a more effective manner. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to be wonderful and sunshine and roses all the time, but it's that fundamental foundation that you're always trying to strive to get back to. And so your attitude is going to matter. Just if you have a negative attitude just in general about things, implementing good habits or making changes, in most cases, it simply just won't work. If you're constantly, well, I tried, or it's too difficult, or, I can't do this, then you've already set yourself up to not be able to do it. So you really want to give yourself that edge and motivate yourself to say, I know that it may be challenging. I know that it may be difficult, but I can do it. And that's invested in yourself. You're investing in your happiness and making your surroundings more pleasurable and happy as well. And in many ways, in many aspects of your life, especially when it comes to increasing your level of success or feeling good about yourself, and feeling more optimistic and just increasing your overall health and well-being, there's nobody better to invest in than you. Okay, so remember that. And then making a commitment. Again, that investment, a promise to yourself that I can do it. If I set my mind to it, I can do it. Um, I know that it may be challenging, it may be difficult, but I'm going to try. And then making sure that you give your that genuine effort to making that change. So having a positive attitude will make it easier for you to kind of open that door of possibility and be more accepting to the change that you want to create. Because remember, ultimately, this is a change that you want to implement in your life to make it better for you, the people around you, and your environment. So developing good habits, we're going to kind of go into something that I like to talk about, which is good habits for college students. And again, can go in other directions as well. So it's talking about study skills. And I can talk about this all day, okay? But I only did really put up one slide for this because what I find is when you talk about study skills, it can get very complicated. And I wanted to share with you just something very basic, good habits that you can implement that doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it'll significantly help you better understand or feel about how you study. So one of the things that you want to do, sometimes when we start to study, we just want to study everything. We trying to take it all in, and we just don't have the time and we don't have the ability. So we really want to study with purpose. Identify what you need to know and study to understand what you need to know. And sometimes that's really saying, I really want to know all of this information, even to the professor. What is something that you think is just a must know in this? The areas that I really want to understand this material in a way so that I can take it with me. So I want to have very clear and concise and direct purpose about what it is I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Okay, because it's going to be very difficult to retain everything. So if I can have those conversations, I want to focus on that. The other is creating a routine. We just do better when we have a routine. It keeps us more organized. And it actually reduces a great deal of our stress if we kind of have a schedule. And review at the same time each day, if that's possible. Definitely do that. The one thing that I do highly recommend when you study and getting into the habit is hour study, take a break. I know people do it very differently. They may study for an hour or 2 hours and take a 30-minute break, but there needs to be a break. So I like to encourage people to block off 45 minutes for study time and then 15 minutes of a break. It just allows your body to relax, your muscles, your mind to relax, and it also allows you that opportunity for the information that you have taken in to retain it, to go into the memory, and then you can start that process over again. Prepare and maintain your study environment. That goes back to what I was talking about, the bad habits, declutter. If we are in a clean and clear and soothing and relaxing environment and our space is decluttered, it's open, our mind flows freely. We're more accepting of information and we take it in. We just feel better. So you want to give yourself the best opportunity to be able to study well, but to retain information and feel good in the environment in which you're going to do that. So just kind of clearing your space or decluttering your space, especially that space where that your studying is taking place. And then reward yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. Being able to say, I had a good day of studying and I followed my routine, I did something and I'm gonna reward myself. Maybe you get that Starbucks coffee. For me, I go and I get my little bag of See's candies because see, I started a good habit. I used to eat the whole box of See's candies. So I made little bags of treats, I freeze them, and as a reward, I go in. My good habit now is that I just take a little piece of that candy and reward myself. And I changed the bad habit of eating the whole box into a good habit of just a little treat. So right now we're gonna just take a little break. This is the attendance. If you are here for the extra credit, so please, I'm gonna give you a minute to take a picture or to write down the link on this page. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. All righty. And please know that if anyone didn't get that, just let me know. Okay. So now we're going to do another poll. I generally don't do a lot of polls, but this is really good. So good time management enables you to work smarter, not harder. Mhm. We're going to close in 10 seconds. Okay, we're going to end the polling and let's share the results. Interesting. Okay, so 55% strongly agree. Okay, 39% agree, 4% neutral, and 2% disagree. Okay, I would love to hear some in the Q&A about, especially the 2% that disagree. I would love to take in that information. So, okay, so I'm gonna close that. Excellent, thank you very much. So we're gonna talk, obviously we're gonna talk a little bit about developing good habits when it comes to time management, which is very important as well. So benefits of time management. What is time management? Time management really is making the most of your time. And the reality is that's gonna look different for all of us. So it's some of the things we can share and some of the things, you know, we wouldn't want to implement because it doesn't work for us. So it's a kind of an individual thing. But in general, time management will lessen stress, you have less anxiety, you become more productive, more confident, more balanced, more effective, and more successful. So it's just some of those things that it's just going to increase. It'll take away and increase certain things for you. Um, it really is the process of organizing and planning, and whatever that looks like for you. It's just being able to make the most of the time that you have to really diminish or significantly decrease levels of stress and anxiety. So when we, as I talked about, as students or just in general, we can kind of take this information and put it in other areas of our lives, um, which is something that I do. So let's say as a student, you want to review your syllabus. Um, this is one of the things that as an educator, I always would encourage my students to do, to have a sense of what is the expectation for this semester. The majority of the information should be located in the syllabus. So as an educator, I hope that the information, which should include all assignments and due dates and expectations and the rubric and all of that good stuff. So you really want to review your syllabus at the beginning. And if you have any questions and need clarification on anything, looked at, just get in the habit of, that's a good habit to do. And then block off class and lab times, block off exams, papers, homework, and projects, due dates, block off set time obligations, insert homework, study and completion times, and insert relaxation and fun time. So this is a good habit really about using a schedule and a planner. Okay, it just helps organize us better. It just keeps us more efficient and makes us more effective in our daily lives. And it's really about whatever that looks like for you. You know, um, when I do my planner or I do, my calendar, it's always a color system, and it's always the difference between using a pen and a pencil. Anything that can change, I always use a pencil. Anything that's flexible and change, I use a pencil, but anything that's concrete, I use a pen. But it's really whatever you want it to be. The key is how you distribute the time. So good habit, time management, invest or create a daily planner. As I said before, review calendar daily and weekly in every aspect of your life. On Sundays, my family's in a habit, we sit down and we go through the upcoming week calendar to make sure everybody's got the right schedule, just to eliminate, misunderstandings and conflicts, and to make sure that we're really on the same wavelength when it comes to the schedule. Set boundaries for yourself when you're doing time. There are things that we want to do that we can't do, and we need to set boundaries. We need to be able to say, yes, I can do that, versus I'm sorry, but no, I can't this time. Prioritize. Prioritizing doesn't mean that things aren't important. It just means that I have to do this at this time, and I'm going to have to do this later. It's not saying that that's more important than something else. Stop procrastinating. You know, uh, there is why do tomorrow what you can do today. If it's you have the time to do it, you want to, get into the good habit of doing things as they come and not pushing them um, to the next day and the next day, because that's just going to create stress and anxiety for yourself. Practice self-discipline. Again, we've talked about the routine, getting in the habit of the routine of doing something, um, and be reasonable and flexible. Uh, that's extremely important, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you have high expectations and you're expecting a lot of yourself and you're not giving yourself, it's just not a reasonable expectation. And you want to be flexible because, things change, and we don't want to get so concrete about something and so specific about something that we don't allow ourselves to be flexible in our own schedules. And again, that goes to revise, whenever it needs to be revised, be okay with that. and that's not a reflection of bad or good. That's really just a reflection of being flexible. And then when you need help, ask for help, you know. So again, the key in this, before we do our last poll, is really about the emphasis is really on good time management and implementation. Is what enables you to work smarter, not harder. When you practice good time management, the process should work a lot better for you, and it'll make you feel a lot better. It should be beneficial. And if not, this again goes back to a good time to take a step back and do some self-reflection, reevaluate the situation, and then make the needed adjustments or changes that you may need. Okay, so now we're gonna do our last poll. And okay, so being able to communicate effectively is perhaps one of the most important of all life skills. Mhm. Okay. Give it 20 more seconds. Okay, I think we're good. Let's again share the results. So 70% strongly agree, and 27% agree, and 4% neutral. All right, so let me stop. Okay, so good habits and communicating effectively. So getting in the habit of communicating effectively benefits every aspect of your life, from your personal life to your college/professional life and everything in between. Okay, so one of the most important aspects of effective communication is being a good listener. So communication is pretty essential. There's some studies that would say it is the most. I chose to put one of the most, but it's pretty significant. And it's not that other areas aren't, it's pretty significant because without being able to do it efficiently and effectively, you can't really communicate anything else, whether it's non-verbally or verbally. You need to be able to communicate it. Okay, so it's really that sender. I use sender and receiver. So conversations are two-way, whether it's one-on-one or a group. And a part of that conversation, again, it should be 30% talking and 70% listening. So you should be prepared to listen. Okay, and then the investment and be engaged in the conversation. And what that basically means is that every entity and every person is important. And this is a process of shared information, which is very important to what we do in every aspect of our lives, as how we transfer key information, understands and know is through our communication, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. So we really want to get into the good habit of practice of this good communication. And then being invested and engaged in the communication also means that you have this respect of what the other person provides. Because let's be honest, no one likes to communicate with people who are only interested in telling us what they want to say, and in turn have no interest in listening to what we have to say. So we all have to be invested, and we have to be open to listening as well. Ask questions to clarify when needed. Be respectful, which is very important. Be open-minded about whatever the conversations are. We don't have to agree, but we need to be respectful and agree to even disagree. But even when we don't disagree, that doesn't mean that we're not learning. So we want to get into the habit of taking in information as well. And be aware of facial expressions and body language. This is important in every aspect of again, to other people, because some people read us just by our expressions, um, as well. Um, our body language can tell if we're engaged and open and receptive versus cold and detached. So we really want to be careful with the body language, get in the habit of understanding self, and how we present is very important. Know your social systems. We're very different. People bring different things to the conversation. So we want to be open-minded and respectful of that as well. Be courteous. Don't dwell on one point. An entire conversation took place and you only focused on one thing. That's not the practice of good listening skills. Be courteous and in conversations appropriately, which is very important to do. And this is also when going to be engaged, you don't want to allow distractions into the conversation. If I'm having a conversation, I want that eye contact. I want to know that you are invested in what I have to say, that you're interested in what I have to say. Again, communication, very important. We want to get into the good habit of implementing that on a regular basis. And then self-reflect. Again, I'm a big proponent of self-reflection, being able to step back and ask yourself, who was I in that conversation? What did I say? Could I have said something differently? Could I have been better? We're always working toward improving ourselves in those good habits and those skill sets, because they're going to go with us for the rest of our lives. So again, I cannot stress the importance of good communication. So now I'm going to just share final thoughts. Good habits builds self-value, self-worth, self-importance, self-purpose, and self-confidence. So it's important to really understand the impact. I go back to the 50%, of our actions and behaviors are all about our habits. So we want to be very aware of that. And then developing good habits empowers. So it empowers us to believe in ourselves. So believe in yourself, know that you are capable. Again, going back to you set your mind to it, you can do it. Know that you are worth the investment. There's no better investment than self. Okay. Helping yourself gives you an opportunity to be able to ultimately help others. Know that you can do anything that you set your mind to. Just be patient and be flexible. Give yourself grace and non-judgmental. And know that you have the power of choice. So select what works for you. Not everything, not every habit is for everyone. And you have the choice to make the decisions of what is best for you. And you do want to take into consideration when we're doing habits or correcting bad habits of how it's affecting you and how it's affecting others as well. And know that good habits matter in every aspect of your life. Okay. So that is the end of the webinar. I'm going to give you a minute. Thank you for coming. So at this juncture, again, like I said, we really welcome any feedback that you can provide for us. So please take a picture of this or write down the link at the bottom and do this, and you will be put in to the drawing for the gift card to Amazon. So now I am going to answer any questions that we have in the Q&A. So let me bring that up. Okay, so we have a kind of a statement that I feel like time in developing a routine and keeping it is the hardest for me to do and to attain, and it is. And as I stated before, it can be difficult. But the good thing about routines is we want to, continue to practice them as often as possible. And that's why, I also encourage that when you create a routine for yourself, don't try to do all things at one time. Kind of implement things one at a time so that you kind of get used to it and it get better and better, over time. So don't give up and don't give in. And, this would be a good time to, give yourself that positive self-talk, letting you know that I can do this, that I am capable of this. And then kind of reviewing, how is this going to be helpful to me, and assessing, the benefits that it's making. And then, of course, again, making the adjustment. So it can be very difficult, but know that if you keep trying and you keep going, that ultimately you can do it. So I chose agree simply because I think most of the time it helps and makes things happen, okay, when it's less difficult, yes. But not always. Sometimes it makes you more at ease rather than anxious. That's a very true statement. Absolutely. Okay, can I have an email for contact? Absolutely. So I will type my answer in here for you. I will provide my email. Absolutely. Give me a moment. Okay, so are there any more questions? Okay. Do you have to know, do I know statistically what habits tend to help people go through with creating change, or what habits help best for your personality? Oh, I don't. That's a, for individual personnel, I do not know, but that's a good question. Of what habits help best for your person. Now, that's, I wish I had a website or something that you could go to that specifically talked about personalities, because everybody's going to be different. That would sound like an assessment specifically for the person to take, but that's a really good question. I'm really sorry I don't have a specific website that you could go to, but that isn't, I would make a note that that would be a good thing to have in the future. I'm a mom of 3 kids, 16, 12, and 4. What advice do you have when it comes to time management? Well, I would definitely say that, time management would be pretty essential for you in this particular situation. My guess is that you're a very busy person. I hope that in all of the schedule that that you're implementing time for yourself, because it's going to be important for you to take care of yourself in the process of being there and being what you need to be for your children. So, um, yeah, I think a schedule would be good. I think flexibility within that schedule is going to be pretty vital and important for you. A lot of self-care in that time management, using the schedule. But I think one of the key components, if I'm looking at the schedule, I'm saying I have kids, there's probably school, there's activities, there are a lot of things going, is being able to, implement self-care and be flexible within that schedule as well. So the next question, do you have any suggestions of helping teens to practice good habits? Um, Stubborn teens to practice good habit. Well, making them a part of the discussion is going to be better. Teens are not, I think that um, it becomes about them, you, and what you want for them, and you don't make them a part of the discussion, a part of the change, a part of the decision making process, they're going to become very resistant. So I would definitely encourage you to make it a team and let them be a part of the process as well. How can I not run late and be late minutes for things? I work full time in a tenancy review full time. How can I work late? Yeah, that's really about scheduling your time. I mean, I would get in the practice of trying to say that I'm going to set a goal for arriving maybe 15 minutes late. I mean, not late, don't do that. That's a bad habit. We're trying to break that one. 15 minutes early. Just get in the practice of being mindful of the time and that I'm going to be 15 minutes early. The one thing that when it comes to time and trying to be on time for certain things, some people will change their clocks and do so that they trick themselves. That's not going to, and that may work for them, and that's great. You really want to kind of set a goal for yourself of trying to implement being 15 minutes early for something and increase it over time. You know, I am always just on time, and my goal is one of my goals is to 15 minutes. So I would just implement that, challenging yourself, okay, one thing at a time to be 15 minutes early. Where are we able to access the recording again? Thank you. It is on the CAPS website. If you go to the CAPS website, maybe in chat, we can put the link to the CAPS website so that that would be available for them to be able to access this again. How do you start prioritizing your day? How to break down large tasks? Pretty much you just said it, how to break down large tasks by making them more reasonable and attainable where that they can be accomplished. So, you know, looking at the whole picture and saying, okay, how can I break this down into segments to do it a little bit at a time, whatever that particular project may be. Prioritize your day. I mean, generally what needs to be done versus what can be done and what can I do later. So making that list will definitely help in prioritizing, because again, it's not that anything is more or less important. It's just that you're only going to have so much time in a day, and being okay with saying I can do something later as well. How to motivate yourself in order to adapt good habits. Well, one of it is just saying to yourself that positive self-thought. This is what I need. This is good for me. This is better for me. This is going to improve. I'm going to invest in me. You know, having that positive self-talk and reminding yourself that this is an investment in you, which ultimately will be an investment in others. So definitely, you know, do that. Again, I am a proponent of positive self-talk. When we say that we can do something and we get up with purpose every day, you know, I get up every morning and I do a positive affirmation. Hello, good morning, beautiful. And I start my day, you know, in that positive way. Doesn't mean I'm going to have a perfect day, but I'm going to start my day off with that positive affirmation that I can have a better sense to have the day that I want to and be able to address things that come toward me in a better way. So definitely try to implement positive affirmations. When you schedule a class, ideally, how much time would you give in between? Well, since you're on the campus, and I guess it would depend on how fast you can get to the class. I think for me, you know, some classes are like 15, 30 minutes to get in between. That's a tough one for me. If you're pretty good at getting to your classes and you're pretty diligent, I would like generally to have about 30 minutes in between my classes. I'm not quite sure what they give on campus in scheduling your classes and stuff. But if I had to take a class, ideally it would be an hour or 2 hours, simply because I don't like going into one class right after the other. There may be a test in one class and then the other, and I just like breathing room. So ideally, maybe an hour in between, at least 2 if possible. But I know that um, that may not happen simply because class schedules. And thank you very much. Very helpful workshop. Thank you. I think that's our last Q&A. So, okay, there's no more questions. So I would like to take this time to thank everyone for joining me today. And before I depart, I just want to leave you with this message, okay? So I often say at the end of different presentations to be the change that you would like to see in the world. So, but today, I would like to add, I encourage you to be the change that you would like to see in yourself. So developing good habits not only benefit you, it inspires others. So walk in your beauty and please enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for joining us, joining me. Goodbye.